And welcome everybody to Law&Crime Daily. I'm Jesse Weber. After calling just one witness and questioning him for less than an hour, rapper YNW Melly's defense team has officially rested their case. And that means that this trial is nearing its close. After the state rested on Monday, the defense called its sole witness Tuesday morning. Adrian Davis says he was with YNW Melly, whose real name is Jamel Demons, on the night of the murders, and they happened. Now, that was back in October of 2018. A group of friends were leaving a recording studio late at night in two cars. Demons got into a dark-colored Jeep with Cortland Henry, Christopher Thomas, and Anthony Williams, and another group of young men got into a red Mitsubishi. At some point, Davis testified that the cars pulled over, and Demons moved from the Jeep to the Mitsubishi, and they continued to Demons' home. Now, Davis testified that they all went to sleep in different rooms and then woke up to the news that Williams and Thomas had been shot and killed. Henry drove the two victims to the hospital, telling police that there had been a drive-by shooting, but investigators say they determined the shots came from inside the car. The prosecution contends that Demons was sitting in the back seat when he shot the victims. Both Demons and Henry were charged with murder, and they're being tried separately. Demons faces the death penalty if he's convicted. Now, the only witness the defense called on Tuesday, Adrian Davis, testified that not only was Demons in the Mitsubishi with him, but he was at the house when word came that two of his childhood friends were dead.
Did there come a time in the early morning hours that you were woken up and heard some distressing news?
Yes.
What did you hear?
That a second Julie was shot.
When you heard that, did you see Melly in the house?
Yes.
Did you see Melly how he was dressed in the house?
Yes.
What was he wearing?
Shorts and a t-shirt, I think.
Okay. Upon hearing that Sack and Julie, and I really should use the correct names, Anthony Williams and Christopher Thomas were shot, what did you guys do?
We were already dressed and stuff, so we just left with Fredo's house.
Was anybody upset or crying?
Yeah, we all were crying.
Mr. Davis, you said you're 100% sure that Mr. Dennis found out at the same time you did?
Yes.
No questions about that? You're sure he was at that house?
Yes.
And you were upstairs?
Yes, ma'am.
He was downstairs?
Yes.
But you're sure he was there? You could see him?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
And since the defense already rested, this case will soon be in the hands of the jury. Correspondent Terry Austin breaks down what's next.
The judge decided this morning that the court will be dark on Wednesday, and that is because Prosecutor Christine Bradley is not going to be available. She has to be in court with Judge Fine to take care of another matter. Court will resume again on Thursday. On Thursday morning, the jury is going to hear the closing arguments by both the prosecution and the defense, and they will also hear the jury instructions. The judge has already determined that once the jury begins to deliberate, they will be sequestered. And what that means is they will not be allowed to go home in the evenings once they begin their deliberations. They will come to the courthouse every single day and deliberate, and then go back to the hotel and spend the night and come back in the morning. That is what the judge has decided to do. This is a double murder case, and they will be sequestered while they are deliberating. This is Terry Austin recording from the Broward County Courthouse.
All right, I'm joined by my co-host, defense attorney Brian Buckmeyer, and today's special guest, defense attorney Jeff Wolf. Great to have you both here. Jeff, I'll start with you. It's all about Davis's testimony. I mean, they called him sole witness. The question is, was he believable? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that his demeanor was great on the stand. I don't think he got overly emotional. I don't think he got combative with a very combative district attorney, which is always helpful. I think the biggest issue that they're going to have is what's his motive to lie, right? Mm-hmm. That's any eyewitness that you have. What is their motive to lie? Why should the jury believe them over the science they heard for weeks prior? And I think that's going to be the larger issue, his friendship with Melly, and how can the prosecution frame that as the reason that he would have to come in and lie to the jury. But as far as how he testified, his demeanor, the way that he held up under cross, I think he did a great job.
I got to tell you, Brian, I was surprised. I thought they were going to call, I don't know, a cell phone data expert, a crime scene reconstructionist, some other expert, but they didn't. They just called one witness. Why did they do that?
Yeah, I'm surprised as well. But when they did it, it started to make a lot of sense to me. And ultimately, and I think Jeff touched on a lot of important points, but if Davis is found credible, I think at the end of the day, the defense will be playing chess while the prosecution is playing checkers, because the prosecution is trying to win all of these battles, the cell phone information, the trajectory of the bullets, even potentially a motive. But the defense is coming in and just simply saying he wasn't in the car. You could say anything you want about bullets and this and that, and when he got into the car, we have a witness that if you believe him, he wasn't in the car, and that's chess, not checkers. It wins every day.
And clearly they're banking on that testimony, because you would think maybe they would cover their bases a little bit and say, okay, even if you don't believe him, maybe we can show you why the cell phone data is inaccurate, why the crime scene reconstruction data is inaccurate. They're banking it all on him and a lack of what the prosecution had. And still ahead on Law and Crime Daily, a Milwaukee mother is arrested on child neglect charges after her 2 sons were spotted running naked in the street. The police found in the family's house of horrors. And welcome back, everybody. Several Wisconsin residents called 911 last week after spotting 2 young boys naked in the street, covered in marks and bruises. Prosecutors are calling this case, quote, something out of a horror movie. A criminal complaint states that police responded to a Milwaukee home where neighbors reported a woman yanking one of the injured boys back into the home. As one officer approached the home, they reported hearing a quieted cry or whimper and spotted a woman exiting through a side door. That woman was 34-year-old Katie Koch, the 2 boys' mother. She said the cuts on her kids' bodies were from escaping the home through a broken window, but the responding officers didn't believe their injuries were from glass. As the officers entered the home, a latch was found on the kids' bedroom to lock it from the outside, along with mounds of trash and smeared feces on the walls. One witness told police that the roaming children were, quote, acting like cavemen, like they had never seen sun before. Koch, along with her boyfriend Joel Mankey, were arrested on 4 counts each of felony child neglect. Koch also faces additional misdemeanor charges. Mankey's cash bond was set at $6,500. Meantime, Koch is being held on $30,000 bond, and a preliminary hearing is set for July 26th. Now, Brian, what is the state of these children? The way they looked, acting like, caveman. What does that tell you about the prosecution's case?
That information is going to give us all the insight as to the level of neglect. Neglect in many states, including here, are broadly defined. It could be a lack of nutrients. It could be a lack of health care. It could be even physically assaulting them. So their argument or their potential defense that they crawled through glass and got cut, obviously that was debunked by the officers when they first observed that, but the extent of and the length of this deprivation of sunlight, food, nutrients, or just basic, even education, could amount to stronger or even greater felony child neglect cases. So the evaluation of these children are going to be everything.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeff, we talked about this preliminary hearing that's going to happen in July. What do we expect from that?
So the judge is going to determine if there's probable cause to move forward unless the defense waives it, to keep negotiations open with the prosecution, which in a case like this, there may not be negotiations when you have kids in that state and that abused and that neglected. I don't know that there's going to be any negotiation. So likely a hearing on the probable cause.
And Brian, that's pretty easy to move forward. The bar is kind of low, even if the defense doesn't waive it.
Yeah, preponderance of the evidence, or will we say more likely than not, or just 51% chance. If they can reach that mark, then they've met their burden and they move on towards trial.
I'd say it's a horrifying case, and it is, but unfortunately, I've heard these things before way too often. It's just a really sad state of affairs, and we're going to continue to monitor it and see what happens at this preliminary hearing.